What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Monday, September 28th, 2020, start of a brand new week of insanity, and it really is getting crazy out there. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble. We got a lot of news to cover today. It may be a little late before we're opening the phone lines, but, keep your hand hovering over that little phone handset. We'll get to you eventually here. Obviously, two pieces of big news. Saturday night, Donald Trump did officially nominate Judge Barrett to the United States Supreme Court, and the firestorm has already started. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. The other news, of course, is that tomorrow night is the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and everybody's trying to second guess what they're going to talk about. There's going to be no handshakes, no elbow bumps. They're not going to wear masks. There will be no opening statements. They're just going to get right into the questions and have at each other. Rush Limbaugh is still out there saying that Biden is going to claim he's been exposed to coronavirus and says he has to go into quarantine. So I don't think that's going to happen, but that's where Rush Limbaugh was coming from on that one. Now, interestingly enough, Nancy Pelosi is preparing for the House of Representatives to decide the presidency. Now, the way the Constitution is written, if there is a tie vote in the Electoral College, or if the Electoral College fails to meet and do its duty, the election is thrown into the House of Representatives, and each state delegation gets one vote. Now, this hasn't happened since 1876. Right now, Republicans control 26 delegations to Democrats 22, with Pennsylvania tied and Michigan a 7-6 plurality for Democrats and a 14th seat held by an independent. So if the delegations change significantly in the November election, then the House of Representatives would be in a position to declare Biden the president. And apparently Pelosi is getting ready to try and do just that. Getting on to Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Democratic Whip Senator Dick Durbin is admitting the Democrats cannot prevent the appointment of her. And he's the second-ranking Democrat in the Senate. And he's admitting Democrats are powerless to stop the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court unless Republicans change their mind and side with them. And I would imagine there's probably a lot of arm twisting and blackmail and bribery going on in the back corridors right now. Senate Democrats can't stop Mitch McConnell from confirming a new Supreme Court justice, but they're already planning to make it as painful as possible. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has his caucus on board with an effort to disrupt and obstruct Senate Republicans using a wide range of procedural tools to try and make it difficult for the Senate Majority Leader. So they're just basically going to try and muck the system up to try and delay things a little bit. I think they're going to try and delay the confirmation till after the election, and if Biden wins the election, they're going to stamp and scream and demand that Trump withdraw that nomination. All righty, apparently a new report paints Democrats as fearful that the lead member of their party assigned to torpedo Amy Coney Barrett may not be up for the job. We're hearing comments about she's not sure what she's doing, meaning Dianne Feinstein. All righty, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden hinted that he started his academic career at Delaware State University, an historically black college. However, the university has gone on record to say that Biden was never a student at the institution. So either he lied or he had a memory fade, neither one of which is a positive outcome here. All righty, Joe Biden's getting a lot of heat for his comments comparing President Trump to Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels. The backlash against those comments has been fierce on Twitter, with many people demanding an apology for the insulting and inaccurate comment. Now, there's this election analyst out there who is giving Biden a 77% chance of winning the 2020 election, but he blew it big time back in 2016. In fact, a lot of so-called experts and analysts messed up in 2016. Everybody was out there saying, Hillary's going to win in a landslide. It's Hillary, it's Hillary. No, it was Trump here. Now, Trump's former campaign manager, Brad Parscale, is in some kind of trouble. He's down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And according to WPLG TV, Parscale's wife reportedly phoned authorities and reported her husband was threatening suicide. Well, apparently he's now barricaded inside his own home. I guess it's a tough job being a campaign manager here. All righty. Project Veritas has scored again. And this ballot harvester, Ilhan Omar, was videotaped in this cash for ballot scheme, and was on tape saying the car is full of absentee ballots. The video shows them, and he's just out there saying, the money is controlling everything. So Donald Trump is calling for a probe into Ilhan Omar following reports of illegal ballot harvesting. All righty, down in Colorado, they're encouraging dead people and non-citizens to vote. The Colorado Secretary of State is under fire for mailing postcards to dead people and non-citizens, urging them to go online and register to vote. This is going to be the crookedest election in U.S. history, and there's been a lot of crooked elections in our history. This one is going to win the gold medal, I think. All right, now the New York Times came out with a story that reported that Donald Trump paid no income tax for 11 years, just $750 in 2016 and 2017, and reported huge losses across his business empire. Now, the White House is out there saying the story is phony and fake. It's definitely spin, okay? Because the detail that is not being published by the New York Times is the fact that from 2005 through 2007, Donald Trump paid a total of $70.1 million in income taxes. Well, why did his taxes drop? Because he had major business losses. And the tax law says that, yes, you can deduct your losses off your income to reduce your tax burden. It's all perfectly legal. And this is why Democrats are upset. Even though the story is out there and it's in their talking points, and we can expect Biden to make an issue of it at tomorrow night's debate, the fact is Democrats couldn't find anything illegal in these leaked tax reports, and they couldn't find any proof of Russian collusion, which is what they were really after. Now, somebody somewhere is going to be in a lot of trouble. The New York Times is insisting they obtained the tax records legally, but somebody somewhere had to leak them out, and that is very much against the law. So the New York Times has failed in outlining President Trump's taxes again. They tried the same thing back in 2016. So maybe now we should figure out how members of Congress making $200,000 a year become multimillionaires while they're holding office. That would be a story I'd actually buy a copy of the New York Times to read that one. Okay. Liberals are throwing everything and the kitchen sink at Judge Amy Coney Barrett in the race to keep her off the Supreme Court. After an anti-racist author referred to her as a white colonizer for adopting 2 black children from Haiti, feminist journalist Christine Grimaldi of Rewire News Group claimed that Barrett is weaponizing her white womanhood. Others are out there saying that Barrett's adoptions were illegal, and they were done only so she could dodge accusations of racism. And there are a lot of people out there attacking this organization she belongs to called People of Praise. And they're attacking her Catholicism. And a lot of people are seeing this as an attack on religion as a whole. Now, it needs to be remembered that under the Constitution, there is no such thing as a religious test for holding public office. That's absolutely forbidden. And so her religion under the Constitution is irrelevant, and yet that is definitely where the Democrats are going with this. But John F. Kennedy was a Catholic, and didn't seem to affect his performance in office way back when. So the People of Praise, initially there was a report saying that People of Praise was the inspiration for Handmaid's Tale. That fell apart. And, there's lots of organizations that Catholics join to live their religion daily, as opposed to simply going to church on Sunday. And this is one of them. They do a lot of good work. And the Democrats here are basically hoisting with their own petard, attacking religion, I think, here. The Democrats have another talking point. Barrett will dismantle Obamacare. And you got to give it to the Democrats. When one of them says something, they all say it, kind of like lemmings leaping off the cliff. Okay. 3 Democratic senators have declined meeting with Amy Coney Barrett, as Lindsey Graham says the Judiciary Committee will approve her nomination to the Supreme Court on October 22nd. And one of the senators who will not meet with Barrett is Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She tweeted that out yesterday. And she said, "I refuse to participate in the further degradation of our democracy and our judiciary." Now, President Trump is out there. He was interviewed on Fox and Friends Weekend on a clip that aired yesterday, suggesting that Amy Coney Barrett on the court could overturn Roe v. Wade. So we'll see what happens on that one here. Lindsey Graham is out there saying that Democrats will try to destroy Judge Barrett at their own peril. And if the battle for Brett Kavanaugh gave us Lindsey 2.0, then we're going to get ready for Lindsey 3.0 for the confirmation of Judge Barrett. It's going to be a fist fight. It really is. All righty. Ever since Wednesday, Democrats are trying to get people alarmed and afraid the president will not leave office if he loses the election, or, to be more accurate, if the election is successfully stolen from him. After remarks from both Biden and the president amid post-election mayhem, another big-time social Democrat had to intervene. Senator Bernie Sanders is now calling for an independent commission to oversee the 2020 election amid concerns over fairness and accuracy. Interesting story that is coming out from stationgossip.com. A speech by Sidney Powell back in November is now getting more attention, with word that the Clinton Foundation is now under a criminal investigation. I'm sure they're going to find lots and lots there because it doesn't even meet the requirements of a 501c3 in terms of how much money actually went to charity. Federal prosecutors charged Philadelphia Democrat Treasurer Christian Dunbar with embezzlement and entering a sham marriage for citizenship this past week. Party is known by the company it keeps here. Turning to the domestic protests and so forth, the New York Police Department clashed with Black Lives Matter protesters standing among diners in Manhattan. Seattle descends into more chaos, and Portland erupts on the 4th night of the Breonna Taylor unrest across the country. Let's see. Shocking footage from the scene shows the outdoor seating area of the Cowgirl Eatery in Manhattan's West Village suddenly inundated with officers who flung protesters to the ground and pushed crowds away. It is getting crazy out there. And it seems the more and more of this happens, the more predisposed ordinary people are to join in the violence. And that paints a very disturbing picture if Trump wins re-election. We know what happened back in 2016 when Hillary lost. You know, all of her supporters went completely bonkers, and they were, you know, trashing towns that had actually voted for her. All right, over in Minneapolis, the city council's pledge to abolish the police has sort of gone away. And a lot of people are saying what happened, and the members claim the vow was made in spirit. But, you know, this idea of abolishing the police, that's ridiculous. Somebody actually said, you know, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? The police are definitely needed. Yes, there are some bad apples out there. And it's kind of interesting to see the shoe on the other foot, because the Democrats love to blame all gun owners for the few gun owners who behave badly. And now all of a sudden, entire police departments are being blamed for the few cops who are bad. All right, over in Atlanta, a Black Lives Matter activist was arrested last Friday and faces federal wire fraud and money laundering charges. Sir Major Page, 32 years old, is accused by the FBI of spending the money on clothing, guns, and a new home in Ohio, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The FBI said Page took the money through a GoFundMe account linked to the Facebook page of Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta. The group raised nearly $470,000 between June and August, but the money was actually funneled to an account owned by Page. So, all right, getting into other things here. The California wildfires are still going on. They've been going on for so long, they're starting to drop off the news broadcast. In fact, looking at the corporate media today, it's either coronavirus or the coming debate, and not a whole heck of a lot of anything else. But according to NASA satellite data, global fires have actually dropped by 25% from 2003 to 2019. So the claim that the California wildfires are caused by global warming seems to be falling apart, along with the fact that so many people have been arrested for arson. All right, let's talk about COVID-19. Donald Trump just got done doing a press conference at the White House talking about COVID-19 testing. They have an accelerated test that will have a result in just 15 minutes. And he's promising the vaccine will be distributed 24 hours after it's made available. All righty. This month, pardon me, Dr. Ronald B. Brown had a daring paper published in Disaster Medicine and Public Health Preparedness, conservatively entitled Public Health Lessons Learned from Biases in Coronavirus Mortality Overestimation. This is from Cambridge University Press. The subject of the article is disruptive, to say the least, although it is not obvious from the title. The manuscript cites the smoking gun documented evidence showing that the public's overreaction to the coronavirus pandemic was based on the worst miscalculation in the history of humanity. The manuscript underwent an intensive peer review process and was cleared for publication. This is where they used the wrong value in the calculations for mortality and came up with a number that was actually 10 times higher than it actually is. Remember, I think it was on Friday's show, we gave out the latest CDC mortality rates, and they're like, less than 1% for virtually every age group. Okay, despite pressure to carry out further studies after 2 cases of serious illness, neurological problems, British-Swedish pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca has resumed trials of its COVID-19 vaccine in Britain, Brazil, India, and South Africa, although tests are still on hold in the U.S. As U.S. health authorities show reluctance to allow AstraZeneca to resume tests, a plethora of questions remain unanswered regarding the neurological illnesses reportedly suffered by study participants after they received injections of the experimental vaccine. Earlier in September, AstraZeneca and its partner, the University of Oxford, announced 2 neurological illnesses registered by the volunteers in their tests. They subsequently offered various accounts of the sick trial subjects, which, instead of allaying concerns, seemed to generate more questions. All righty, story coming out of Global Research. This is a first-person article talking about how testing people for any strain of a coronavirus, not specifically for COVID-19. And the gist of the article is that the testing that has been done to date tests for any coronavirus, not specifically for COVID-19. And so if you've had like a common cold, you're going to get a positive test. And this may be one of the reasons there has been a tsunami of false positives. So anyway, getting on down here. All right, based on the latest CDC data, the Wuhan coronavirus poses virtually no death risk whatsoever for people under the age of 50. New CDC data confirm the Wuhan virus poses almost 0 death risk in people below the age of 50. At the same time, the data also confirmed the virus remains extremely dangerous to people over the age of 70, and the CDC estimates that 1 in 18 elderly people who contract the virus end up being killed by it. Meanwhile, the infection fatality rate for people 50 to 69 years is 1 in 200, making it far deadlier than the seasonal flu for individuals in that group. But for people aged 20 through 49 years, the infection fatality rate drops to just 1 in 5,000. That means that for every 5,000 people who are infected within this age group, 1 fatality is expected. For those who keep insisting the Wuhan virus is some kind of a biological weapon, it's not a very good one, is it? 1,400 Belgian doctors and healthcare professionals sound the alarm, saying there is no such thing as a killer virus. Basically, they issued a letter, and it's, gotta take a break for more commercial. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and a friendly reminder, nudge in the shoulder, elbow in the ribs, that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. We need your help to keep doing what we're doing. We don't have any angels out there pouring tons of money onto us, because usually when tons of money are poured on you, it comes with a lot of strings about you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, can't say anything bad about Israel, so forth and so on. So we rely on you, our listeners, to just dip into your wallet just a little tiny bit. And send it along. Maybe skip a pizza this week or something. Send us the money instead. Be good for your waistline and good for Republic Broadcasting. So the postal address to send check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, we're talking about COVID-19, and we're talking about this letter that was written over in Belgium by 300 doctors and 1,100 healthcare professionals signed on to it, and basically called on their government to immediately stop the corona measures. These are disproportionate and cause more harm than good. There is no longer any medical justification for this policy, and apparently the letter is having an effect on public health policy in Belgium here. Now, a former chief science officer for Pfizer says there is no science to suggest a second wave should happen. Okay, Dr. Mike Yeadon, a former vice president and chief science officer for Pfizer for 16 years, says that half or even almost all of tests for COVID are false positive. Dr. Yeadon also argues that the threshold for herd immunity may be much lower than previously thought and may have been reached in many countries already. Now, YouTube censored the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Okay, this was the 23rd of September report titled "COVID Whistleblowers Expose Narrative is Total Fraud," and YouTube officially delivered a warning to the Ron Paul Liberty Report YouTube channel. They claimed in the notice that the program, which violated their community guidelines regarding spam, deceptive practices, and scams. Okay. Now, over in Iran, U.S. sanctions are harming Iran's COVID-19 response and amount to medical terrorism. This is coming from Foreign Minister Zarif. So Zarif has accused the United States of impeding his country's ability to fight coronavirus, explaining that U.S. sanctions have prevented the purchase of critical medical supplies. Washington's efforts to stop Tehran from exporting oil have limited the government's ability to respond to the global health crisis and provide relief to the Iranian people. Okay. This is an interesting article. We talk about the ancillary effects of the lockdown and the ITV. More than a third of young people have lost hope over future aspirations due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Prince's Trust, at least 1 in 3 young people have abandoned their job aspirations for the year ahead due to the COVID-19 crisis. More than a third of the 16 to 25-year-olds feel they will never succeed in life. The research carried out by Census-Wide shows 44% of 16 to 25 years olds have had their aspirations for the future are now much lower because of the COVID crisis. Down in Australia, which has gone totally draconian in terms of its handling of the people. There's one case where this farmer went public. He's not allowed to feed his livestock in Australia due to the COVID-19 lockdown. That, of course, is total insanity. If he doesn't feed the livestock will die. Okay. All righty. Now, the big news that nobody is covering, and even Claire spotted this and said, this is really serious stuff right now, but it's not being covered on any of the corporate media. And it has to do with Armenia and Azerbaijan getting closer and closer to war over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. And both Armenia and Azerbaijan have declared martial law. They're moving dangerously toward war this weekend after heavy fighting in the disputed enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. And at least 16 Nagorno-Karabakh troops were killed in a morning Azeri attack. Now, Nagorno-Karabakh has been contested for decades. Legally, it is viewed as part of Azerbaijan, while Armenia guarantees its independence. The two nations often come into conflict over the region, but haven't fought a full-scale war in many years. Nagorno-Karabakh reported they were hit in the morning with airstrikes and artillery strikes. Azerbaijan claimed those attacks were retaliation for Armenian shelling against their forces, which killed 5 civilians. So Armenia has ordered a full troop mobilization against Azerbaijan. There's even been a clash between tanks. Okay, we're going to take another break here for commercials. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show. Here we're talking about Azerbaijan and Armenia. And Turkey is now throwing their weight behind Baku against the historical nemesis Armenia in the struggle over Nagorno-Karabakh. And Turkish presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalin took to Twitter on the heels of the fresh clashes over Nagorno-Karabakh. The senior official made clear that Ankara will side with Azerbaijan, a nation whose language and culture are close to those of Turkey. Now, Erdogan called on ordinary Armenians to stand against their government again as clashes with Azerbaijan continue. So Turkey is sort of getting involved, and that's bad news because Armenia stands ready to trigger the mutual defense pact they have with Russia. So Armenia could trigger its collective defense pact with Russia, the latter of which also has a sprawling military base at Gyumri in the northwest part of the country. But on Monday, the Armenian ambassador to Moscow has said the escalation of fighting with Azerbaijan had not quite reached that point. So they're holding it out as a warning, but they're not doing it yet. But if it were to happen, Turkey, despite being a pain in everybody's rear end, is still a member of NATO. And so you're going to have NATO and Russia fighting in Azerbaijan and Armenia. So Azerbaijan follows Armenia in announcing martial law after intense border clashes. Now, the Armenian prime minister is warning the aggressive Turkey to stay out of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and says that hostilities could spill over to regional borders. Well, certainly that's going to happen if Turkey and Russia step on in. So this is serious stuff. And as I said before, I'm rather surprised that we're not hearing any of this on America's corporate media. Now, Armenia's prime minister is saying Yerevan may recognize Nagorno-Karabakh's independence. They've been promising that for a while. So the decades-old frozen Armenian-Azeri conflict in the breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh exploded into large-scale military clashes just yesterday. Apparently, some journalists were caught in the crossfire. Journalists working for Turkish media came under fire from the Armenian military after hostilities broke out. The U.S. is calling for an immediate ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And hopefully somebody somewhere is going to be listening. The U.S. State Department called for an immediate ceasefire in Nagorno-Karabakh, urging the conflicting sides of Armenia and Azerbaijan to return to OSCE-supervised negotiations. All right, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines, 800-313-9443, and we're going to go to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. What's on my mind is the elections and
yes.
The revelations over the last week that in spite of it was 107 days now of rioting in a row, all over the country, everywhere, with the most, which has been described by insurance companies as been the most destructive riots in the history of the United States. That despite all that, the FBI, Christopher Wray, and whatever it is, the Department of Homeland Security, list still white supremacists as the major terrorist threat to this country.
Yeah, you want to talk about black is white and left is right. I mean, that to me was just absolutely ridiculous. But it's just more and more of the white bashing that we're seeing going on from the halls of government and the corporate media.
Yeah, and Mike, it's clear in the face of everything, and that this is a coordinated effort because the media doesn't do anything to disabuse them of that. As a matter of fact, they're agreeing. the media are the ones saying that they're mostly peaceful, all this stuff. They've been lying to us all along.
Yes.
The media is the one, and their owners are the ones that have been, as a matter of policy, that have been demonizing white people and weaponizing the black community against us. It's clear as day that that's what's going on. And it's a clear policy by the media and their owners. We know who they are, everybody, to do this by hiding the fact of the true statistics of black crime, which are astronomical, by hiding the fact of 107 days of steady riots and the most destructive riots in the history of the country, and blaming. How can you arrive at any other conclusion, Mike?
Well, we really can't. I mean, we're seeing this anti-white movement across the entire nation. We're headed in the same direction as Zimbabwe and South Africa, which reversed their social order and wound up with absolute disaster. Yeah,
and I will tell you that it's got down to the point where if Trump, and he has his warts, but I'm going to vote for him, at least he's doing something about this. And rolling back the white people are the root of all evil classes and the critical race theory crap that we're being presented with from kindergarten onward.
Yes.
I'm telling you, we're looking at genocide. We're looking at confiscation of property. We're looking at not being able to hold a job. We're also, by the way, looking at to go along with that, you have to have complete control of the media, which means this forum is gone too, as will every other one. Because you know what? They won't tolerate any dissent or anybody saying what's going on. And of course, we know that we can't criticize the owners of the media because that would be considered anti-Semitic. 28 states, that's the law.
Yes.
So
I wonder if Indiana's one. By the way,
yeah, well, California certainly is. Ohio is. You're surrounded. But by the way, I had a conversation with somebody talking about 911 truth and how they're saying that it's starting to come out, that people are starting to realize it, and that I think I came on when you had that gentleman talk about architects and engineers and all that.
Yes.
That I'm less concerned about that than who did it, right? And he goes, well, it's important as a first step. And I said, it's been 20 years. And by the way, if you don't start naming the names widely now, right, next year, it will be against the law to name the names. It's already against the law to name the names in 28 different states. So, it is what it is. And this is a shout out to everybody. This is, and by the way, to all the Asians out there, they won't allow a minority as numerous as Asians and as high achieving and affluent. They won't allow them to exist either. Only people they can control will they allow to exist.
Yes.
So we're the first hurdle. They're the second. That's it for me, Mike. I know you got other callers, and there you go, man.
Well, thanks a lot, Peter, for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing there, Mike?
Doing okay?
Hope you had a nice weekend. Listen, a couple of things. One is about what's going on in Armenia or Azerbaijan now.
Yes.
Here's an example. Here's an example of why we need to get out of NATO. We need to get out of it quick, or just tell NATO we're not going to honor any of these agreements, because this could easily escalate into potential World War III.
Yes.
It's also an example why I don't understand why when the Soviet Union did end, at least when they didn't just get rid of communism. They didn't want communism. They should have just gotten rid of communism, but kept the Union together. Because once you had the Union together, this wouldn't be happening now. First of all, Azerbaijan and Armenia were both part of the Union.
Yes.
And second of all, and they would have been, they would have been told, cool your jets, cool it, On top of that, Turkey or no other country would dare mess with them. And a lot of this problem they have with NATO right at the doorstep of Russia wouldn't be happening. They wouldn't dare. Each side knew their place at that time. And that brings me also back to last week. I think it was Tom and the guy from Maine too. I forget his name. The guy from Maine there. Oh, Kyle, yeah. They were saying something about, Trump, why don't I have anything good to say about Trump and this and that? Well, the reason why is there's very little good to say about the man. Okay, I like the idea he got out of that TPP trade agreement. Yep. I like the fact that he got out of the stupid climate control treaty, Paris Climate Control Treaty. However, as far as NAFTA, everything I understand, this thing is even worse than NAFTA was before. He should have gotten out of NAFTA completely. But everything else, the guy is getting us all into, if we're not into new wars, we're certainly in potentially new wars, including what's happening in Syria. Now, Tom said that he didn't care, we have a right to that oil or some stuff like that. And that's total because we've been there. Remember, the United States was not invited into Syria. We're still not invited into Syria. We came in there as a hostile power. We also bombed the crap out of Raqqa. That's what supposedly to end ISIS. But in fact, of the matter, ISIS was nothing but CIA mercenaries, and still are CIA mercenaries. And by the way, mercenaries for the Turks too, because if you notice, they're getting a lot of them now into the battlefield there with Azerbaijan to help Azerbaijan.
Yes,
so that's what that was. We have no right to their oil. We have no right to Iraqi oil either. Iraq did not invite us in either. We invaded them illegally under false pretenses. Okay, and by Trump saying, "Well, we'll take their oil," basically making us a nation of thieves, a pirate nation.
Yes,
that's what he's doing. He's embarrassing us. He's embarrassing me as a veteran, and I'm sure most veterans. Okay, this is not what America is supposed to be about. We don't steal from other countries. We're not supposed to. We don't invade other countries for no reason. We should mind our own business and get out of all these places and bring our troops home, and stop putting those sanctions on all these people, like on Venezuela, on Iran, on Syria. Fact of the matter is, countries like that are not part of the globalist empire. They are fighting against the globalist empire. Okay, Syria, Iran, Venezuela, other places that Trump puts down all the time, Nicaragua. All these countries, they may be socialists, but they're not part of the globalist conspiracy or New World Order. Not at all. Biggest problem we're facing today, the reason why we have the COVID-19 lockdown is because of predatory capitalists, the worst capitalists imaginable, mainly these, what do you call these technocrats, these Silicon Valley technocrats mixed with the Wall Street bankers, okay, mixed with the Rothschilds, mixed with the Rockefellers, the whole bunch. That is the problem. That's not communism, socialism. I wish it was. It would be easy to deal with if it was just communism or socialism, okay? These are economic systems, but, some are dictatorships, some aren't. But this is a lot worse. Keep on saying, they keep on, and they talk about China this, China that. Now, I don't know what the story is with China. I have an open mind on that. I'm not sure whether they, what the deal is with the COVID, how much they had to do with it. I'm really not sure, okay? But the fact of the matter is, the problem is not with all these other countries. The problem is with us. And then the other thing is, of course, he's an arch-Zionist, Trump. He keeps on basically marching to the orders that Netanyahu gives him. It's not being putting America first. Listening to his son-in-law there and listening to that other nut job that the Christian Zionist there, Pompeo. These people that don't mean us any good. And this is my problem with Trump. On top of that, now I hear that this woman might be what's her name, Amy Barrett. She might be a Trojan horse, because now I understand that she voted to keep the lockdown in Illinois, and she went along with some Jacobson decision, I think it's called, from 1905. It said that they said that they had a right to not forcibly inject you, but if you didn't want to take the injection, they gave you a fine. They gave that guy, I guess the name was Jacobson, a fine of $5. But the fact, $5 in 1905 was probably $500 today. So the fact of the matter is, whatever it is, this woman may be a Trojan horse. I'm really not sure. Yeah, everybody's all excited, this and that. Robert Barnes, a great constitutional lawyer, said that she's the only one on that list that Trump had that actually went along with the lockdowns and stuff like that. Personally, I think that Cuban lady, I think Balboa or something like that.
Yes.
She'd have been far better. And Barnes thinks so too. You know, this woman may very well be a Trojan horse. Everybody keeps clapping. Oh, Trump, this and Trump. No, Trump is a horrible president, Mike. Horrible president. He's not a good president, Tom. All right, Miles. He is not a good president. I will vote for him only because the choice, the alternative is just unacceptable to me. Okay? To have Biden and Harris in there. It would be horrendous. Okay? The only reason I'm going to vote for Trump. Not because I like him. I think he's done a horrible job. I did vote for him in 2016 when I had hopes for him. Now, no. I have very few hopes, but I have more hopes that maybe we can somehow still survive as a nation with Trump. While if Biden and Harris gets in there, we're probably going to have a civil war because they're going to try to force vaccines. They're going to force mandated masks. And on top of that, they're going to come after the guns. And once they come after the guns, or they try to force us into the vaccines, I think that the war is on, the civil war. If they don't get us into a nuclear war first, which, by the way, is possible with either Trump or Biden in there. At least Trump seems to be in control of his faculties. Biden, I don't know. Biden doesn't seem like he's all there. So, I mean, you know, he's going to have those nuclear codes, boy. Look out. You can even remember the nuclear codes, of course. But, I mean, we're in trouble, Mike. That's all I can say. Anybody who thinks that Trump is the big hope of this country and that he's some brilliant 4D chess player, I don't even think the dummy knows how to play chess, personally. All right? Mm-hmm. He was a good businessman, yeah. So what? And by the way, I don't care about his taxes. I couldn't care less. I know these big people are all rich. You don't become a billionaire. Very seldom do you become that rich by being honest. None of these billionaires.
Now, wait a minute. Okay. You know, you're the victim of selective editing by the New York Times, which left out the fact that between 2005 and 2007, Trump paid $70 million in taxes. In the years that the New York Times is focusing on, he suffered huge business losses, which come off of his taxes, and all of it was perfectly legal. Okay, Mark, I'm going to hold you through the commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and we're talking with Mark in North Carolina. Mark, could you just sort of pick it up where you left off?
Oh, yeah, about Trump with the bankruptcy. You're right about that. I mean, you know, however, I think there's probably been some sleazy stuff going on with those bankruptcies, too. I know a lot of these rich people, a lot of these big corporations do this a lot. It seems to help their businesses more than hurt. I mean, I went through a bankruptcy myself. It hurt me. I couldn't get any credit for a number of years.
Yes.
But, I'm not a billionaire, okay? But like I said, I'm not ashamed of it either. As a matter of fact, I only wish I could have stocked them for more money than I did. I should have had even more money in my credit cards and stuff. My ex-wife actually ran up a lot of it. But that's the side point.
Then that wouldn't buy the T-shirt.
Yeah. But as far as Trump goes, let's be honest about it. He's not a good president. Look at the people he's put in there. Why
I think he would have been better than Hillary. I think he's better than Hillary would have been, rather.
Oh, yeah, but that's like saying that, I don't know, Burger King is a little bit healthier than McDonald's. I mean, you know, and neither are good for you. I mean, sure, he's better than Hillary.
I mean, what you're basically saying, I know you're disappointed in Trump, so am I, but he's better than Hillary and he's better than Biden. He's the best we've got, so we got to go with him.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. But okay. I'm not going to go and do like a lot of these Trump MAGA people and the QAnon people and act like he's the greatest president since who knows when. Okay, we haven't had a good president, as far as I'm concerned, since John F. Kennedy. Okay, I've changed my mind on Reagan. I know what he did with the 1986 Vaccine Act. I know what he did with the Contras. I know that he actually brought drugs into this country. That came out in Gary Webb's book, in his movie.
Yes.
All the coke that came into this country, and it was Reagan behind it, Reagan and Bush behind it. So I
think more Bush than Reagan. Reagan was already suffering from Alzheimer's, and I think he was a little bit out of it. I think Bush was actually running things.
I think you're probably right, Mike. I think you're probably right. But whatever the fact is, I'm not going to keep praising these people. All right.
Okay.
We have it again. Back in with Kennedy, you had Kennedy before him. You had Eisenhower. These are patriots. Even Truman was better than clowns we've got today. All right. But
yes.
When you look at Trump, I'm sorry. I'm not going to say he's worse than Obama, worse than Bush. They're all bad. Okay. And then he puts the same people in there in his he puts the Bushites in there, and he's surprised. Look at the Justice Department. He should have cleaned that out from the get-go.
I agree.
He probably would have better put Giuliani in there from the get-go, because Giuliani, if nothing else, is a tiger. He would have cleaned that place out. He should clean it out. He'd have cleaned it out. But instead, he puts that idiot Sessions in. Didn't know what he was doing. And down there, he puts I trust Barr, and this idiot with the FBI.
Okay, well, Mark, we're going to have to let you go here. I'm sorry. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to take a break for station identification. More callers waiting on the line when we get back. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're going to go to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Mike, there's one thing about you that is an undeniable fact, and that is your pursuit of the truth. Because you will correct people no matter what. It doesn't matter whether you agree with it or you don't. The simple fact of the matter is some things are true and some things are not, especially when it comes, right? I mean, when with Trump's tax returns, I mean, like, come on. Anyway, and because of this truth, there have been a couple of things that have been on the show that haven't really explained it all. So Peter was talking about if anyone were to call out Black Lives Matter, they'd be anti-Semitic, and there's a reason, because over 600 Jewish groups have signed on to that thing. You reported this like a month ago or so.
Yeah.
And why would they do that? So they can just sit back and watch the chaos ensue? Maybe.
Somebody certainly wants a lot of chaos in the streets.
Well, there are a lot of people that, exactly, because, well, for one agenda or another. Ron Paul, you were talking about his censorship, how he was censored on YouTube.
Yes.
What you didn't mention was, like, follow it to what happened. And really, he got an answer to why he was censored is because his content violated the policy. And YouTube doesn't allow content that explicitly disputes the World Health Organization or health authorities' recommended guidance on social distancing and self-isolation. That's why.
Yes.
Who the hell are the who? Like, didn't Donald Trump cut off their $500 million funding?
Something like that.
Right? So your country was pretty much paying the whole shot, like NATO and all this other nonsense, and you're just being used, just like Traficant said. Just your country's just being used. It's disgraceful, especially when it's so out in the open and blatant. And Ron Paul, like he believes in real money.
Yes, he does.
You can't just create currency out of thin air and expect like nothing bad to happen. it has to be tied to something. There has to be some kind of constraint or restraints on this currency creation. And the thing is, Mike, is they keep creating more and more and more, and the rich get richer and richer and richer, and the poor get poorer and poorer and poorer. Does anybody see a pattern?
Well, you know, inflation is a hidden tax on all of us.
Yeah, when these people create all this currency, where does it go? Where does all this wealth eventually end up?
In their pockets. I mean, right now the Federal Reserve owns 1/3 of American mortgages. You know, we're rapidly getting to a point where the Federal Reserve is going to be the landlord of us all.
The lender of last resort. That's what it was supposed to be.
Yes.
The lender of last resort. But in the case of the United States as opposed to Canada, because, you know, the people own, quote unquote, the Bank of Canada, whereas, you know, the Federal Reserve is private for profit.
Yes.
What do they get? 5 cents on a dollar is skimmed off the top to the shareholders. I remember one year when Obama was in power that he got like $82 billion from the Federal Reserve because, you know, the United States government, the people, have a you know, interest in this as well. One of your pursuits of you know, honesty, because that is actually true, but it's still private and it's still for profit. You know, what's a little bit of cash, you know, right off the top? Well, it's a lot if we're talking trillions.
Yes, it is.
Like, even just your debt, $27 trillion, I think it's approaching now, Mike.
Yes.
Right? Just 1% of that is a crazy amount of money.
Yes.
For doing nothing. So, yeah. So Ron Paul, I guess, is doing well now, right?
As far as I understand, the last word we got from the hospital was that whatever that little incident was that happened during the Ron Paul report last week was temporary.
Well, that's good. He is 82, right?
Yes.
So, you know, maybe he ate a little bit too much beef and not enough veg.
That could be it. I mean? Yes.
Maybe. Anyways, thanks for your time, Mike. You have a good show. I'm going to.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go and switch to Tom in Florida. By the way, the lines are full right now, so if you're getting a busy signal, wait till we get through a few more callers and call on in. Tom in Florida, welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, good. Aloha, Mike. Good day to you, Michael. Yeah, first off, Peter was pretty much right on the money again. Another great call. You know, going back to this Mark in Carolina, yeah. You know, this guy sounds more and more like Dustin to me. You know, Trump this, Trump, you know, it's always blame Trump for everything. This guy, Mark, I'm going to vote, but I'm vote for the two. Okay, listen, Dustin said he's not even vote because he's from New Jersey and it's going to be Democrat anyway. So this guy, Mark, he came from wherever he came from. Now he's going to vote in Carolina. I guess he's going to vote for Trump. Fine. Great for him. Maybe he wants to be on a winning team. But listen, here's the deal. What's going on? And, you know, by the way, to your last caller, let's talk about Trump's taxes. In 2008, Donald Trump paid $17 million in federal income tax. You were talking this a minute ago. He paid $70 million for the construction, Mike. Okay? Donald Trump has not taken a presidential salary in 4 years. He donates his check every year to charities. Okay? He doesn't take a dime, that equals almost close to $2 million. Plus, he's paying all these other multiple $1 million in taxes. How much more do they want out of Trump? Does he got to pay $100 billion to the government? What about this bumbling Biden? You know, Mark and Dustin, all these guys. What do you guys ever talk about Obama? How did Obama get a second term, Mike? How did he was able to beat that idiot, that Mormon Mitt Romney? Because Romney went and buy some pictures to get elected because he's got his hand around Louis Farrakhan. And all these Jews, and I'm still perplexed, Mike, how did these Jews win these Senate seats up in the New England states when they're only like 20% of the population? Blumenthal, who said he was in Vietnam. You got this Bernie Sanders as a full-blown communist. Okay, and these white people are so damn dumb they would vote for these schmucks, these Zionist communists. Okay, let's call them what they are. And all your callers. I watched the thing when they were taking Ruth Bader Ginsburg up the steps of the Supreme Court. You know what the guy kept screaming out? The 6 pallbearers, and the guy was giving the marching orders. Right step right, right step right, right step right. He said it 50 times. Mike, did you see that? Right step.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that. And by the way, there were 8 pallbearers.
Yeah, there's 8 pallbearers. And you know what? Exactly, for the Star of David, whatever that is, about, or the candle Hanukkah. I don't know what the hell that was about. But, speaking of that, Mike, okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg should not have had only a Star of David on that casket. She should have had a hammer and sickle. The Russian hammer and sickle from the Soviet Union should have been on that casket because she was a full-blown communist. Her ideology. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. And, hearing these callers, Trump can't do everything, guys. Trump can only do it. He's exposed the immigration invasion of our country. Yes, I'll agree with Mark on one thing he said was really awesome. He was right about David Dwight Eisenhower. To me, that was one of the greatest presidents as a great general because he did have Operation Wetback. He did stop illegal immigration as best he could using Yellowbird school buses to send them 2 million back. Now, Kennedy, I don't know where this guy's coming up with Kennedy. Mark Kennedy's a great president. Really? Oh, yeah, really? Look at the Bay of Pigs. Look what happened to Cuba because of Kennedy.
Wait a minute. John F. Kennedy did not create the Bay of Pigs. It was created for him.
Well, okay, fine. Okay, so you're going to blame that on Eisenhower, I suppose. I don't know how that went down.
No, I blame it on the Central Intelligence Agency.
Okay, fine. We can agree to disagree. Kennedy did maybe so he could have done some good things. Okay, but his brother, Mark, his brother was a scumbag. You look at 1965 Immigration Act, Mark. Okay, look what he did at Chappaquiddick, Mark, or whatever, where the bridge was, where he had the girl in the car.
Chappaquiddick.
His brother Teddy, Chappaquiddick,
hey,
Teddy
Tom,
Kennedy. They made a movie about.
Tom, who's Mark?
I mean, the guy from Carolina.
Oh, that Mark. Okay, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah,
okay.
The guy that says that Kennedy was a great president Eisenhower. That's what I'm not talking about you, Michael. I'm talking about Mark. He's saying, he's talking about Kennedy. On Kennedy, his brother gave us the 1965 Immigration Act when he invaded our country with multiple millions of people. Look at California, Michael. You know that. You talk about it all the time. 8 million illegals there. Now we're talking about all these guys want to hammer on Trump. Oh, Trump doesn't do this, and to take the oil. Hey, listen. What do these people want out of this guy? I mean, seriously, would you want a guy like bumbling Hyde Biden? That guy? You want Hyde Biden to be your president? Where we really will be in destruction, where we really be in chaos, anarchy. It'll be all utter nonsense, like Peter said. Like Peter had called in and said. And I had her call last night. I hope the guy calls in, and we don't agree all the time, but I hope Dave calls in because he was right on the money. He's passionate, and he did hit on some really good points. I hope Dave calls in from Boston, Massachusetts, wherever he is. And getting back to Mark, he's beseeching me and Miles, beseeching me and Miles all the time. Hey, Miles is a great call. But I think he's absolutely probably the best call. Other than a few other callers, Joe's good too. But Miles hits the right on all cylinders. But this guy's always like putting down what I have to say or Miles. This guy Mark's always hitting on Miles and me. Come on. And, I asked him the other day, Mike, when I called your show, give me 3 things that, Mark, that you agree, or Dustin, that Donald Trump has done good. Is there 3 things that you actually think that Donald Trump has done good for this country? And they have yet to respond. Either one of them. Dustin's already exposed himself as being a Democrat. He lives in New Jersey. The state does not even have an independent. You got this guy, Van Noyes, I guess he's a Republican now. Thank God. We got somebody woke up and broke the mold over in New Jersey. But, Mike, some of these callers, it's mind-boggling to me that everything is lying on Donald Trump about his tax, about Coney Barrett and all that. Well, what do you want? You guys want another Ginsburg? Who would you rather have, Coney Barrett or Ginsburg, Mike? You tell me who you'd want.
Well, definitely I want a strict constitutionalist, and that's what Barrett seems to have been throughout her judicial career.
Well, absolutely. So, I mean, look, we had the 3 witches brew on the court right there with Sotomayor, Kagan, and then you had Ginsburg. So, yes. Come on, Mike. And, I want to tell you what's going on here in South Florida. None of your callers were talking about this guy, Brad Parscale, the Trump campaign guy.
Yeah.
Last night on the local news here, Mike, none of the shows none of the news networks are talking about what's going on with this guy. I was watching 11 o'clock news last night. None of the local news is like switch it when I heard about it. And I was listening to Revolt. And then that's when I heard that this guy, his wife called the cops because was going to commit suicide. But now I've heard a couple on the radio shows here in South Florida. Now they're saying he's barricaded himself in his house. They have to use a SWAT team to get him out. And then I heard another story that he gave himself up and he's getting taken care of in the hospital. I don't know what to believe anymore, Mike. Everything's a filthy lie by these liberal media scumbags. It's unbelievable. What's the truth? Nobody knows the truth anymore. Now you got to talk about the debate tomorrow, bumbling Biden. What are they going to have, an earpiece in his ear? They can't use a telephone.
We're going to be looking for one, that's for sure.
What are you going to give this guy, a quadruple shot of vitamin B or something in his ass? I don't know what's going on. I mean, and people are talking about, well, we've got Trump. Do you want a guy like bumbling buffoonery Biden, hiding Biden, that guy? And he already said that Camilla's going to be running the administration, not him. It'll be Camilla. This guy's got a brain of a 92-year-old man. And he'll be 79 years old next, 2 months from now, Mike?
Yeah.
He's going to be 79 years old. Okay, so the guy, if he gets a 4-year term, he's going to be 82. You think he's going to run again for president? Hell no. His brain will be 150 years old by that time. His brain's shot right now. Who's kidding who? I remember when Hillary was running in 2016 and she had like a fainting spell. You remember that?
Yes, I remember that. They rushed out the body double to reassure everyone she was okay.
Yeah, exactly. Now all of a sudden you're going to have this bumbling Biden in a debate tomorrow night. I mean, come on. Some of these callers are calling in, and we know our one guy up there in Jersey. I mean, come on. Give me 3 things that you like about Trump that he's done. I can tell you one, the angel mothers and fathers. No other Republican or Democrat ever allowed them to have any airtime about the illegal aliens killing Americans. Look at Chicago over the weekend again, Mike. Did you see it?
Yeah,
again,
I saw it.
Lightfoot,
a lot
Chicago.
of bloodshed, a lot of deaths.
Yeah, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice in Chicago's off the chain, man. They have to keep the drawbridges up at night so they don't go in there and try to loot the Magnificent Mile. I mean, this is unbelievable. And all we hear is your callers, oh, Trump's done a lot more than most of these other presidents I can ever recollect. Who's kidding who here? And I hope that guy, I hope Miles does call in because I want Miles.
He's waiting on the list right now. So's David.
And I'll tell you another thing. That guy, yeah, I want Dave to call in because Dave was very passionate last night. I don't agree with a lot of things that guy Dave says, but Dave does tell it like it is. White people are not sticking together because we've allowed the minority. I can tell you, Mike, I'm the one that always tells your show this. The asphalt's telling the gasoline what to do. And we cannot allow this anymore with these major networks. We allow ABC, NBC, CBS to run by a bunch of leftist Bolshevik communists. And one of those networks got to be bought out by conservatives. If we all have to donate billions of dollars to buy out one of those networks, we need to. Because white America has got to be made aware that we're not going to be subjected and subjugated to their filthy, lying, liberal, leftism, communism, Bolshevikism. We don't need it anymore. We have to wake this country up like shook to the core. We got to shake this country to the core. No, we're not going to tolerate it. We're the majority. We are the majority. We're not the damn minority. I live in South Florida, Mike. I told you 100 times on your show, there's not one white male or female on the Miami-Dade County Commission. And we're the ones that made this to call the Magic City. Miami, Florida was called the Magic City in the 30s, the 40s, 50s, and up to the 60s. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
We had the Jackie Gleason show. We had all kinds of shows that were being made here. Miami was a magnificent city. It was spectacular. It was the mecca of the world, actually. And people don't know that. Now, you know what? While the majority's allowing the asphalt to tell the gasoline what to do, it's disgusting. Okay, it's disgusting. It's got to stop at all costs. And these Koch brothers, they should be arrested. The Koch joke brothers and that Bill Gates scumbag and that Bezos imbecile. I used to see Bezos, Mike. I told you the story about Bezos. I used to see him right here pumping his books out in this green van he had.
Yep.
That's how he started Amazon. Bezos. His real name is Jurgensen. He won't even help his father. His father has a bike shop in Arizona. I think it's in Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. So you know what? And to that caller from Canada, to that guy in Canada, let me tell you something. Donald Trump's paid multiple millions of dollars in taxes. And to Mark, I'm going to let Mark know something too, Mike. Donald Trump's a scratch golfer. Mark, are you? You try to keep under a handicap under 10 and see how hard that is. You try to shoot under 10 on a handicap in golf and and don't tell me how Donald Trump don't have no brains. If that man, Donald Trump was carrying a 6'7" handicap, Mike, when he was a young man. Did you know that?
No, I was not aware of that. But then I'm not a big golf
Yes,
fan.
Well, he was a scratch golfer, Donald Trump, and he was keeping I believe his handicap was 7 or 8, if I'm not mistaken. It could be even lower. But Donald Trump, when he was in his 30s and 40s, he was an excellent golfer. He still, for an old man as he is, he still can hit the ball pretty good from what I'm hearing. I read some stories about Trump. He's no dummy when it comes to playing golf. And to be a scratch golfer, if you can keep a handicap under 15, you know what you're doing on a golf course. You're not an idiot. Okay? And try to go play around a golf, Mark, and see how you can do that. So, they heard about putting down Trump about his ability of this and that. The guy didn't become a billionaire being a dummy, Mark, playing chess. And by the way, you want to talk about chess, why don't you read a book about Bobby Fischer and what ended up happening to him, Mark?
Yes.
He was Jewish, by the way. So why don't you read the book about Bobby Fischer and where he's buried at? You know where Bobby Fischer's buried, Mike?
No.
He's buried in Iceland.
Okay, well, we're going to have to let you go because we got to take a commercial break. The phone lines are loaded up right now, and we'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. The phone lines are loaded up here. Before we get back to the phone calls, though, a reminder that the address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719. The network thanks you. Okay, back to the phones, and David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, aloha, Michael, to you and all your wonderful callers. It's interesting. Bobby, this is obviously what I was going to call about, but Bobby Fischer played his big match up in Reykjavik with, I have an excellent memory. I don't know if you guys have probably
Was it Boris Spassky?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I got the Boris part, and the last name I knew began with an S. And Thank you, Michael. Boris Spassky. He played up in Reykjavik. So now we know what Willie Mammoths and Bobby Fischers have in common. They're both buried up in Iceland. Okay. But
so
anyway,
5,000 years from now, some paleontologist is going to dig up Bobby Fischer and put him in a museum.
Yeah. Hey,
or they'll clone him. They'll clone him.
Yeah. Another interesting thing I found out about Bobby Fischer a while back is I don't know how long he was a member of Herbert W. Armstrong's Worldwide Church of God. And although Bobby Fischer was Jewish, I can see why that church would appeal to him, because the Worldwide Church of God kept all the Jewish festivals the way the Jewish people keep their festivals. So it's like quite a cross between Judaism and Christianity. But Mike, listen, I don't know if I put this out before on your show, but it bears repeating with Ruth Bader Meinhof, and Tom's right. She was a red through and through, a red diaper doper baby, she was probably before. She gave birth to red diaper doper babies. But anyways, I saw RBG, and I don't know if I put this out on your show, Mike, but I saw RBG in the Venue Theater in Lexington Center last year. I think I put this out, but she said her whole life and her whole legal career could be summed up in 2 words: reproductive rights. So being the white polemicist that I am, my answer to Ruth Bader Ginsburg about reproductive rights is, what I say, Mike, is 2 reproductive wrongs do not make a reproductive right. If I was on the board, I would. Yeah, 2 reproductive. If 2 people are allowed, quote unquote, given expression to their violent passions for each other, sat up in some motel and all this kind of it. Well, what the Christians normally would call sin or whatever, but sexual immorality and everything. Hey, they're committing reproductive wrongs. It takes 2 to tango. That's 2 reproductive wrongs right there. They're both in the wrong, the man and the woman. So 2 reproductive wrongs do not a reproductive right make, Ruth Bader Meinhof. But Mike, one of the most important things, I wanted to talk about Iran and Trump vis-a-vis Iran and all that, but I must say this, Mike, I've never heard this mentioned on talk radio at all, but it's high time it's mentioned. This notion that only Christians in general and Catholics in specific hold maternity and pregnancy and pregnant women and unborn babies in high esteem. Mike, these loony leftists and everything, they don't even make good paganism. I read a man, Josh Roger's book, The Bible, the Devil's Book, and I was so impressed with that. Then I sent away, I got his Super Homo Sapien book, and I read about paganism. The pagans, Mike, held fertility. Actually, most of them worship goddesses instead of God, going all the way back to ancient Sumeria and the Phoenicians and even yeah. I go into the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and when I lived in New York, I visited up on the Upper West Side, Central Park, Upper West Side, the Museum of Natural History. I've never been to the Smithsonian, but virtually all the ancient civilizations held motherhood and maternity and the unborn child. All the you know what I'm talking about, Mike. All the statues.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so these loony leftists, they don't even know what they should be believing. They probably will go, "Oh yeah, I'm not a Christian, I'm a pagan, I believe in abortion." And always, hey, you make a lousy pagan.
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi and you Jews make lousy pagans. Us white people make the very, very best pagans. You Jews make lousy pagans, okay? Because we hold motherhood, we hold maternity, there's nothing a white man won't do for a pregnant woman. Even if he doesn't know her, there's nothing he won't do for her.
That's true.
Yeah, and the last thing we'd ever do is kill her baby. And Mike, that ties in with one last thought.
Okay, well, hold that spot. Hold that idea. We got to take a break for commercials. I'll come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. And welcome back to our show. We're talking with David in Boston. And David, you had one more point you wanted to make.
Yeah, Mike. Mike, speaking of Ruth Bader Meinhof and the Supreme Court and all that, in jurisprudence and so on and so forth, Mike, it seems to me when a number of years ago, quite a few years ago, I really studied the Constitution in depth under the teaching of a preacher named William Potter Gale. He was a preacher, but he used to preach on the Constitution and everything. And I really learned a lot about the Constitution from Reverend William Potter Gale. He's deceased and everything. And a lot of older patriots might be familiar with his name. But it seems to me, Mike, that it is unconstitutional and it's illegal for one group of American citizens to have rights that another group of American citizens is denied. Now, where I'm going with this, yeah. So, and almost everyone agrees with that. I called Ralph Winterrode, and he gave me a quick answer. Yeah, it's illegal. That's true, but I'm on another subject, so I can't talk about it now. He was on another subject, but he gave the quick answer. Oh yeah, that's true. He said, Ralph Winterrode, and he's a constitutional scholar and everything. But Mike, if traditionally the man was the head of the household, and not to get into that controversy and everything that the feminists have made so controversial, but traditionally the man was the head of the household. Now, if a man, say in a traditional family or something, if he insisted his wife have an abortion, when the woman didn't want to have an abortion, but in some traditional family, the man insisted that she have an abortion, and she had the abortion. And then if she felt guilty about it, I bet she could go right down to the prosecutor's office and tell the prosecutor, a Jewish prosecutor, the story. And that man would be up on some kind of crazy criminal charges. Now, so why do women have the right to kill unborn babies, or call them fetuses, anything you want? But why do they have the right to kill unborn babies or fetuses, and men do not have the right to?
Let me give you the inverse. Let me give you the inverse. I mean, let's say you've got a couple that get married with the clear understanding that the husband wants to have a family, and then once they're married, the wife says, "I've changed my mind," and she gets an abortion when she gets pregnant. And the husband is left with no recourse. If he divorces her, he loses half his wealth.
Yeah, well, that's like kind of like the same side, the other side of the same coin, Mike.
Yes.
In other words, it's just lousy. It's lousy law to have this double standard that these women just
I
have
agree.
complete control over. Yeah, they have complete control over the life and death of the unborn baby, but men have no say whatsoever. Even though traditionally the man is supposed to be the head of the household, and actually he's the one that really should have the final say. So. This is lousy law. This Roe versus Wade is just lousy law. It gives females rights that males do not have. And under the Constitution, that's illegal.
That's true.
You know?
That's absolutely
okay,
true.
Mike, well, thank you so much, Mike, for taking my call, and I'll look forward to listening to the other callers. You know, Mike, even though some of the callers disagree here and there on different things, one thing that I'm absolutely certain of, all of you and all of our callers are absolutely on the same team. Even though we might disagree on some of the details, we're all on the same team. I know that. There's no, we're all on the same. In the final analysis, when push comes to shove, we're like a family. And when the family comes under attack, we're all going to pull together. We're like one family. When we put our differences aside when it comes for the big struggle that's up ahead of us. So, bless you, Mike. So long for now.
All right. Thank you for the phone call, David. We're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, aloha, Michael. That was another good call by David. Good call by Tom. And, I just want to say the one refreshing thing about this election is I don't think we need to worry about a body double from Biden unless somehow they can dig up Mr. Kimball from Green Acres.
I agree.
Then we're in trouble. But, I have a little bit of, I have trouble with Mark from North Carolina's objectivity because I might have said this perhaps once or twice, but when Trump does something good, I'm going to say Trump did something good. And if Trump does something that I don't think is good, I'm going to say I don't think that was very good what Trump did. I think I've reiterated that several times. So I'm really having a little trouble with Mark from North Carolina's objectivity on what he's trying to get at. But I will say this. Mark was a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Yes.
And when you hear him come on here, you hear Nicaragua's so good, and this one's so good, and that one, but we're still, with all these flaws, we're the greatest country on earth. We're still a manufacturing powerhouse, even though not quite like we were. We're still putting out a lot of stuff. You talk about Trump, I do business myself. I talk to minorities. They're doing better than ever under Trump. They're happy with Trump. Trump's going to end up with about 25% of the black vote.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump's doing something somewhere. Then Mark went into this. I really didn't get this. He's talking about the CPP, or what was this new trade agreement?
The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't even take place till the fall. So how in the hell can he judge it? It hasn't even occurred yet. So that's still to be determined. And he's already down in Trump on that. So, Mark has some very myopic views when it comes to Trump. Mm-hmm. But, who does he like? Well, he likes Nicaragua, and he likes these socialists and Bernie Sanders and all this. I don't think he likes capitalism too much. It doesn't sound very refreshing. And, I support Tom when Tom calls, and he has a good call, which is about 90% of the time. I mean, Tom researches, he does a lot of work, and he has a lot of information. But what Tom says is what Tom says, and what Miles says is what Miles says. I don't team up and say, wow, I'm going to say this because Tom said it, and I'm sure he doesn't say that about me. But, it's quite ironic how Mark goes off on this type of a scenario. I mean, like I said, when Trump does something good, I'm going to tell you. If he does something bad, I'm going to tell you. But, if I'm correct on my history, wasn't Eisenhower one of the generals that when the bonus marchers were in D.C., that had thwarted off and helped to assault the bonus troops?
No, but he wasn't a general at that time. He was a mid-ranking officer.
just a mid-ranking thug.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of his guys he likes. So, there you go with Mark. And, Reagan, I mean, he's going to blame Reagan. Reagan, he wasn't like Biden by far, but everybody knew back in Detroit when the Republican National Convention was there, Reagan wanted Pat Buchanan. They suckered him in and put Papa Doc Bush around his neck like a albatross.
Yep.
He didn't rally on Bush, and he never endorsed Bush. So there you go, Mark. So it's just ironic that Mark comes up with this stuff, and
okay. Well, Miles, would you mind if Mark came on the air to respond to you?
Yeah, because I want to make my points. I don't want to deal with Mark. I got a couple things I want to talk about. Mark had said what he had to say. He can save it for some other time.
Okay, so you don't want to talk to Mark now?
Not right now, because I want to talk about the Armenian-Azerbaijan situation.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, Michael, I find this interesting because we've kind of seen a little review of this type of activity between nations like this over and over. We saw it with the Serbians who were vilified and the Bosnians and all that. And of course, somehow we decided the Muslim Serbians were the people to get behind. And, and of course, Hillary Clinton was dodging bullets from the Serbians. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she became under fire and all this kind of fantasy she was in.
Yes.
Well, I see the same thing here. The Armenians are one of the oldest Christian people in the world. I mean, they're biblical. And then now you see these Azerbaijanis who are aligned with the Muslims and the Turks and that kind of thing. And we all see where Erdogan's going.
Yes.
He wants to get into Libya. He wants to bring back the empire or whatever he's after there. And so I find it interesting. Are we going to side with the Christians, or are we going to side with these guys again and learn and have to relearn the lesson that we've learned so many times when we get backed up with these Muslims? So I'd like your input on that.
Well,
your opinion.
I would like our government to be siding with the American people, but basically what they're doing is they're playing politics and trying to change the leadership of all these Middle Eastern countries, and they take out leaderships that are sympathetic to the Russian sphere of influence, and they try and put in leadership that will be sympathetic to the West, but they still have to sell them to the general population, and that's why they have to make deals with Muslim leadership.
Well, but in playing this politics, look how the Turks have dealt with us and how they dealt with the U.S. over these issues. And you look at these other countries, you look at Armenia, and their only resource, which they've had for a long time, is the Soviet Union, the Russians. No longer the Soviet Union, but the Russians. Why should we get involved? Even if Turkey's in NATO, they need to, if they're going outside the legal parameters of NATO and they're creating conflict, they should just have to stand on their own. NATO should be able to say, you know what, you created this situation, you're on your own. Because Turkey has no right to just side with another country and then tell NATO, hey, we stuck our foot in here, come on in and back us up and bail us out, put the life preserver on us. Because, like the caller said several calls back, you could tip the world on the World War III issue. So I'm hoping that, I'm hoping we don't weigh in on this. And, back to Mark and back to Dustin, these guys, Trump has been skillful. Yeah, he's said a couple things, but he's avoided. We could have been in war with Iran. We could have been in war with Iraq. Iran. We could have been in war with several of these other countries. We finally got out of Syria. He's trying to get, things closed out in Afghanistan. He actually did at one point, I believe, wasn't it, Michael, that he said we're going to get out of Afghanistan? And then one of those generals got to him and said, well, we can't pull everything out right now.
Well, they're supposedly we're going to pull the last of our troops out this coming spring, supposedly.
Well, but I mean, at least the effort's there. We've been downsizing it, and that's a lot to say. I mean, that's more than Obama's done. That's more than any of these past presidents done. This whole thing, let's remember this whole Iraq war thing. It started with Papa Doc Bush in the 90s.
Yes.
So, Trump just got here relatively recently compared to the scenario and the longevity of the issue going on. So let's see. I mean, we're not having no more, it's not nearly as volatile as it was. And so we're kind of taming these things down a little bit. But, I'd like to ask, how many of these fires do they expect one guy like Trump with his Congress against him at this point to be able to be successful at? I mean, I think he's making a legitimate, honest effort. Yes, he can do better. We all know that, but it's like you said, Michael, these aren't the choices. Then we get to Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, I mean, I don't understand what these people want. You're not going to get somebody that agrees 100% with you, because if they agree 100% with you, that means they agree 75% with this guy. So nobody's going to be happy. You take what you can get, the best that you can get, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to have to do with Trump, and that's, what we're going to have to do. Otherwise, we're going to get Mr. Kimball from Green Acres.
Yes.
With that, Michael, I want to thank you. Have a great show. Thanks for giving me the time to call.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we're going to switch over to Joe in Nome. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah. You sound like, I mean, I don't know. You can fact check that Cuban boat lift crybaby down there in Florida or not. He's complaining all kinds of different things. But at any rate, it's funny that he ended up talking about Iceland and Reykjavik, which is basically the reason I called today.
Mm-hmm.
I did, NPR is running a story today about Reykjavik and Reagan. Course of my life is always living in the approach pattern, Mike. You kind of set me off when I mentioned Reykjavik last time I called in. But anyway, the whole point of NPR talking about Reykjavik and Reagan led back to this whole business about his statements to the UN and his statements in Iceland about an alien threat from beyond this world. I think all this business with the COVID and these drills are running on both coasts, and this Giza pyramid-sized asteroid whizzing by. Who knows what's going to happen here? But it's all designed, and NPR, I think, just gave everybody a clue. It goes back to Reykjavik. At any rate, our chickens are coming home to roost now, big time. All those mercenaries that we hired to rape Libya, coming back across into Europe, acting like refugees and all this baloney. No, the rapes just skyrocketed all over Europe, which is exactly what they were doing. Our mercs were doing down in Libya. The same thing's going on here in the U.S. It's our chickens coming home to roost.
Well, once you train somebody to be a monster, it's kind of hard to untrain them. Anyway, listen, Joe, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for our last commercial break. We got 2 more callers waiting on the line. I'm going to try and squeeze in the last segment of our program today. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones here to Matthew in Dallas. Hello, Matthew. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. I was calling about a couple things. Economy was up there, but I got so distracted. Anyway, morbidity factors. I've seen the death rate is 9,400 for COVID without any morbidity, whatever. I can't talk. That's why I don't have your job. So what about heart attack? How many factors do we have there? I'm calling out to the Shadow Rangers here. Anybody who's good at math, let's get some odds out there. What are we talking about for morbidity factors? Somebody dies
You mean
from
the
heart attack. How
comorbidity,
many other things are there?
comorbidity factors? Because that is an issue,
Well,
especially when you're dealing with the older patients.
that's what I'm talking about, but just not that. I mean, they painted this whole picture of 200,000 in America. What happens when you paint that picture on heart disease? Other stuff, more obesity. You know what I mean?
Well,
there's other factors in everything. So
yes.
I heard a call about this like 5 months ago. Smart woman. That's just what I was wondering. If somebody's out there who could do a little math, let's hit that. Let's see what it, put some stats up. Anyway,
Okay.
Factor 2. 4 months ago, somebody called in 2 months ago. Said this was starting to sound like Jerry Springer, Mike.
Yeah.
Starting to sound like Jerry Springer.
Well, we're trying to tamp that down.
Well, we need to limit the phone calls to one session or something, or one time a week or something. I couldn't even get in for an hour. You know what I mean? And I don't have time
popular.
for this every day. Oh yeah, you're getting there, bud. And I'm so proud. I listened to you for 10 years and doing great things. So I want this to continue to be a global news network and not Jerry Springer, where people are calling out every single person that calls in. It's getting ridiculous. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mo in Florida. Mo, welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. Just had a few things to say. I sometimes it's just things are, you tie these little ends together, and I was a damn fool that voted for Trump, and I think some of us are just, we want a hero. We want somebody. We got to have the lesser of two evils. That's not a good choice.
No,
but,
it's
I'm
still
originally
evil.
from Nebraska. Huh?
I said the lesser of two evils is still evil.
Yeah. I've been in Florida for about 40 years, but I'm originally from Nebraska. I know you remember the Franklin credit union scandal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boys Town, and how they were trafficking kids, and all the elites were involved, and how trafficking, the whole situation, all was covered up. But, something nobody ever talks about, I guess they do, but just the very fact that the Attorney General's father hired Epstein when he was 20 years old, while the college dropout, to teach at a exclusive school for the ultimate rich at Dalton School.
Yeah.
And he had no degrees. He was a dropout, and then he's hired by Greenberg, to be a traitor. To me, this whole thing is just one. I don't know if you follow David Icke. I used to follow him for a long time, and then he got on that whole alien trip, and I kind of said, okay, this is too much. But I think he's right, man. The whole echelon, the whole hierarchy is tied together with child sacrifice and pedophilia. I mean, just look what Trump did with this.
All right, I got to cut you off here. There's the music. It's time for us to bring today's show to an end. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We really need your help to keep doing what we're doing. We could add more phone lines for one thing. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.